Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when are you looking or watching us. And thank you for being part of the Material Business Podcast. My name is Monica Hernandez with Infinity Growth, and I have a real pleasure today to be with Jane. Thank you, Jane, for coming to the show.
Thank you so much, Monica. Hi, everybody. Depending on where you are located, it is an absolute pleasure to be on this show. My name is Jane Zhang. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Edge Sourcing. We are a managed procurement services organization specializing in procurement, category management, strategic sourcing, and sustainable procurement.
That's amazing. So, you guys heard her. We're going to talk today about sustainability from the very beginning. So we have spoken with many other guests about why is this important to design correctly? Why is this important to select the right materials? Why is this important to think about all that from the engineering perspective at the beginning? Now, how do we get there? And that's when I said, Jade, you are the perfect person to come and talk to the audience about how we can make this sustainability procurement thing work, because a lot of the guys that work in materials also need to think about, is this something that is realistic? Can I get this piece on time? Where is this coming from, and all that? So that's what we're going to talk today. So let me dive into the first question. Just tell us a little bit about this journey and what led you to decide to go and co-found a company. And before the show started, we were talking about it's so important that we have role models, people that have taken the jump and said it's totally doable. I can't find the perfect job, well, I'm going to create it. I don't find something that I'm passionate about, I'm going to do it. So having senior level entrepreneurs like you, it's very important for many reasons. So what can you tell us about that moment?
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, I'm so pleased about this conversation that we're having. We in procurement, we always emphasize whenever we do training, whenever we talk to people, the importance of collaboration internally within an organization. So, particularly in the materials area, collaborating with your materials engineers, working with your experts in the organization. So, this is an amazing conversation to be having, Monica. As for my part, so we actually co-founded Edge Sourcing about 7.5 years ago. So myself and my business partner, we come from industry. So we are industry practitioners in procurement, in sourcing, and category management. And myself, I come with a background in global energy management and sustainability as part of my master's. And so when we started Edge Sourcing, it came from this idea of really wanting to create, as you said, that standard of quality when it comes to sourcing and procurement. The way that we have seen it work over and over for us in organizations, we wanted to bring that same concept to everybody kind of across multiple industries. So taking a very collaborative approach, being very proactive about what we do, working together with our business units, working together with our suppliers, and really driving for that greater good that we're looking for, that mutual win-win scenario. And so that's how we started Edge Sourcing. We started about 7.5 years ago with just my co-founder and I, and we are now a team of 25. We have offices across Calgary, Montreal, and down in Miami. We have services in both languages. I am proud to say I am now almost semi-bilingual in French as well. So we've been studying very hard, and we've been trying to do everything that we can to really get into this space. And one of the things that we're very, very passionate about at Etch is sustainable procurement. So particularly as we look at the evolution of the procurement industry, the evolution of supply chain, where are we going as a world, as a business industry? This is something that we're super passionate about. So we love bringing our procurement expertise and using that to bridge the sustainability to operationalization translation gap. So I'm super excited to be here to talk to you guys about that today.
Awesome, and congratulations. This is an amazing achievement, and it is so good to see that a Canadian company it's able to expand and then bring the flag elsewhere and see, okay, yeah, we are succeeding here, we are also bringing. So it's very nice. So congratulations on all the achievements and the growth of your team. I know at first hand it's not easy, but it is totally rewardable, especially if you have that passion. So you said you wanted to do, or your passion is working on the sustainability of the procurement and then having collaboration. So how those two mix together to make the perfect mix?
It's a very fascinating thing that's happening right now in our industry, and I know you're very well connected in the sustainability trends that are happening right now. There are so I think we've moved as an entire organization away from, why should I do sustainability? Why should this matter? There's been so many conversations around the importance of this. There's been so many targets that have been set, from net zero to UN SDGs to all these different carbon disclosure projects, all these different targets that are being set. And now I feel like a lot of organizations are in a position now where they look at sustainability as really, this is something that is coming. This is something that is important to us. This is something that's going to help us succeed. This is something that has been proven to help us drive better results, better engagement, better brand value, better production. All of these different whys are there. Now, as an industry, we're in that place where we've got these goals and we've got these targets set. What organizations are now trying to address is the how part. So it's the, okay, I've set a net zero target. I want to be net zero by 2050. I know what needs to happen on the operations front because that's my business and I know my business very well, but I don't know what else I need to do to help my suppliers get there or to help my supply chain get there. And that's really that downstream component of it. So that's where we bring a lot of industry expertise in operationalizing, in doing the work, in negotiating and running RFPs. And what we've done is just add that lens of sustainability across the entire end-to-end procurement process to really help operationalize some of those targets. And incredible things that I've been so blessed to have witnessed and to have been a part of, these incredible projects, to see how industries and organizations are moving their procurement needle to push for sustainability, but not at the cost of business value, to find that perfect balance of like, how do I actually bring in that sustainability lens without sacrificing my business value, ultimately in service of the greater good for the company, but also the greater good for the community that the company is operating in.
That sounds amazing. And when I talk about this with our audience and with material engineers and corrosion engineers, the question is always, we know the value because we have studied for many years. We know how much this is going to benefit, and then doing sustainable choices for companies is going to pay out. And you said it within the negotiation area and the procurement. Do you have any example of something practical? Because a lot of people, when we go into, for example, in my realm, when I said, let's go, let's manage corrosion, let's manage asset integrity, and they're like, oh yeah, that's going to cost me. And I'm like, no, that's going to save you. So let me show you how. So it's that, re-education, I guess, of the thinking of, I have to invest now. Yes, but at the end, what are you going to get? So are there any practical examples that you can share?
Absolutely. So many, so many, Monica. There's, I think it's one of the biggest myths in sustainable procurement whenever we talk about this, that everything's going to cost more. And I will not argue that 9 times out of 10 on a like for like product change, if you're going from product A to product B, you may see a cost increase. That's probably something that is very common, and most people stop there. And one of the things I do encourage people to look at this from the lens of is take a step back and look at the holistic value. And the beauty of strategic sourcing is, as an industry, we have been moving towards that for years. We've been looking to move away from unit cost analysis to total value proposition, total value cost. What is the total cost of ownership rather than just the unit cost of ownership? And sustainability is taking that concept of that total cost of ownership and extending it towards sustainability. And so a lot of fantastic examples in this space. We have seen companies benefit from millions of dollars in cost reduction by putting in place a circular recycling program for their electronics. We have seen companies benefit from actually reducing their carbon footprint significantly while maintaining the same cost levels by moving towards leasing of EVs versus purchasing of, traditional vehicles. We have seen companies move transportation methods towards a more sustainable transportation method and also still gain a cost reduction in that front. I love that you guys are talking about this from a materials perspective because this is actually so fascinating. There's so many things that when you start to look at it and take a step back and say, okay, what are the actual requirements of this material? What is this material actually going to satisfy? And then challenging yourself from that lens of, if I was to look at this from a more sustainable perspective, what does this look like from a long-term perspective? Are we looking at, less replacement costs, less rotation costs, those types of things? And that is the power of, I think, what this actually brings to the table. And I never guarantee, 100% out of 100%, you're going to always have, cost reductions, but there have been extensive studies that go to show that companies actually that manage their supply chain from this lens actually do see cost reductions over time because it forces them to take a step back and really think about what they're buying, think about the purpose of what they're buying, and start to challenge themselves from that lens of sustainability, which could lead to additional innovation elsewhere.
That's amazing. So, what we have said in the podcast with very many different professionals in different parts of the world and in different looking through different lenses of materials. So I'm talking about oil and gas industry, biomaterials, geothermal, solar, all those people have come to the podcast. And then what we've concluded as a community, I guess, and every single one of them has said 70% of your impact, environmentally speaking, can be reduced at the design phase. But then I guess we can improve that 70% from the lenses that you're looking at with what is the next step. So in the procurement area, if we tackle those two things together, then we can significantly improve the 70% that we were getting at on our papers and our graphs that we love with this practical component that you're bringing to the table.
Absolutely. And I think, what's really beautiful about this is when you're looking at your design, when you're starting to kind of start with defining the requirements of what you guys are looking to build or you're looking to purchase, you can start to bring in procurement to those conversations and they can help you bring in those supplier perspectives. Nobody knows what's happening in your supplier's industry better than your suppliers themselves. So sometimes, and it does happen, that suppliers have a new product that they may have that may have actually a benefit from a sustainability impact perspective, but it requires an assessment of whether or not this product could be a replacement product for your current product. And maybe they don't pitch it to you because they know they're specced out right now with you for that product that you've always been purchasing. So until you ask the question to your suppliers, until you ask the question to your marketplace, you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think that's a really cool thing where it shows that collaboration potential between the two business units, that you can really use procurement not just on the downstream sourcing side of things, but actually, to help you get more information when you're actually going to design, to start to think about, hey, these are other trends that are happening on the marketplace. These are what other suppliers are doing in the marketplace. I'm currently using this supplier and this material, but could I look at all these other options that are out there? So it's a very, very, I think, synergistic relationship that can exist there.
That's amazing. And that's the second thing that everyone has. I think 100% of people that have come to the podcast have said we need collaboration. We just had a very, very specific, detailed podcast with someone that created a corrosion model to model corrosion. But then through collaboration, they're using that model to find life in the moon of Saturn. Of Jupiter, sorry. So it's, how amazing is that? So
that's incredible. That is so incredible.
It shows the power of collaboration and the power of how we communicate internally to get the goal that as a whole, as a one company, we are looking for, and then we are able to replicate that to our teams and our other areas of the company, ultimately to our industry. So I'm really glad we are going on that direction. So tell me, what are some of the roadblocks, I guess, that you had to go when you were pitching? Okay, this sustainable procurement is good for you. Which
For sure.
strategies do you use? Like, how can you pitch that? How can you say this? Because this same person that I'm talking about, he said it's difficult because you're telling someone that needs to invest today in something that is going to pay back very late or after some months, years, whatever. So what are some of those strategies, knowing that you're so good at negotiation?
I think the biggest thing is not to forget the business value side of things. I think, it's very easy to get very excited about sustainability, but, one thing that I have seen definitely people trip themselves up is, they see an opportunity for, a carbon reduction. They see an opportunity for waste reduction, and they bring that forward with just that lens. And they say, oh, but by the way, it's going to drive this cost up, or it's going to drive this other element up. And in our work, in our field, it's all about providing options. It's about providing projections. It's about providing calculations of scenario generation, like what happens in scenario 1 versus scenario 2 versus scenario 3, and proposing hybrid mixed solutions sometimes. And so when we think about that, it's always about when you come forward with an idea, a potential opportunity, you don't want to lose that business value lens to things, because you want to continue to have that focus, understanding that you want to do good and you want to have sustainability impact, and you want to be able to do that carbon reduction impact. You want to have that waste impact. However, an organization also has to be profitable. So being able to keep that lens on both sides helps you strike that balance of identifying the right opportunities. The other thing I will share is, recognizing that there are limits to your opportunities, right? I always say to our clients, you can't do everything. Like, there's 17 SDGs, and each one breaks out into more ratings and more specific sub targets. So don't try to do everything all at once. Find what matters and what is possible. So, if you think about it, what matters to your organization? Is it carbon reduction? Is it water? Is it biodiversity? Is it social? Is it actually something around modern slavery? Like, what are the key strategic things that really matter to your organization? And then bringing them down and trickling them down into your specific area and saying, where can you realistically impact? Like, if you have a category, or if you have an opportunity that's already low waste generation, does it make sense for you to try to create a project to target waste reduction? Or are you going to be better off trying to focus on something that's more aligned with the impact potential of your area, like carbon reduction, like addressing fugitive emissions, those types of things? So focusing your lens on what is realistically able to be accomplished and where do you have the most impact potential in your area, that's going to help you really drill down into something that's operationalizable. And when we say operationalizable, it's, can you turn this idea into something that is now happening on a day-to-day basis?
Mm-hmm. So I heard being realistic, having opportunities, having like diversify the solutions, and then looking at it with the impact that
Yes.
each opportunity. So see how similar is our world, because we also work, when we come and say, do the corrosion in the right way, do the management of your assets in the right way, because these are the risks and these are the potentials, and this is what can happen, and this is going to cost you that. Whether if you look at this from this perspective, you can have those scenarios broken into 10. And what you have said also is very interesting, is it's gigantic. Like, just digesting all of that is like, even for our company, like, and material business, we focus on SDG 5 because it's all for women, and STEM, go women. But
Yes.
also It's number 4, which is education, informal education. We just wrote a newsletter about it. And collaboration, SDG 17. So we are focusing on those 3 because if we take everything at once, it's complicated to make it work like we want at once, everything. So it's very interesting. So where do you see this going? Like, you have been in the industry for a while now. You come from industry, but now with your own company, what is that you see that this trend is going? You told us at the beginning we are far past the limits and the goals and the KPIs that's already there. Yeah, we need to get there because all our dirigents went to Dubai and say COP 28, we're gonna beat this beast, and it is now the time. They signed it off, and so now we have that, but it's now the how. So what is the trend in the industry? Like, what are you seeing?
Absolutely. So it's really fascinating for procurement as a function, procurement and sourcing as a function. I think this industry has come a long way in the last 40 years. 40 years ago, I think we were still talking about unit cost analysis. We were like, hey, this thing costs 10% more than this other thing, so we don't want to buy it. And, that was the level of tactical analysis that was happening back in the day. Now we're looking at things from a strategic perspective. We're looking at, service value. We're looking at service creation, all these different pieces. We're looking at collaborative solutions with suppliers, innovating new supplier development, developing our suppliers, readying our suppliers, diversifying our supply base, all these different things that are coming in. And that's really been that movement for the last 40 years. I see the next 40 years as this transformation away from, we went from unit cost definition to total cost definition, and total cost of ownership back then was defined, and now is defined as cost of the organization. I really see that concept of cost evolving over the next 40 years to total cost of ownership becomes cost for the planet. And it's not just the organization, but that total cost of big component of it being organization, but also the society in which your organization operates within. And I'm doing a doctoral level research in sustainable procurement operationalization right now. And that's actually the focus of what we're trying to bridge, understanding that how do you get from we want this to we are now doing this as part of our integrated process. And that is something that I definitely see the industry moving towards more and more, particularly now that we have these goals. We've said there's nobody left. Well, there's probably still some. There's always a 1% there, but generally speaking, people understand the why of why we need this, why we need to do this, why this is important, why we want this. What they need now is a tool set that can get them to the how. So how do we get them there? And what does that mean on a day-to-day basis for the people that are at the front line, negotiating their contracts, doing the cost analysis, doing the value calculations, all of these things? What does that really mean for them?
It's very interesting. I see more than 1%. Anyway, my industry still, like, after we've discussed corrosion for.
I say that and I'm like, yeah, it's probably more than that. But we like to think about,
There you go.
we're trying to target the people who already have that intention. They already have that attitude set. So the arguments for the why continue. Our focus is really on for those of you that have understood the why, let's help you get to the how part.
There you go. That's beautifully said. We're going to work with people that are in the same vibrational area as we are. That's amazing. So, do you see any difference between companies that are service providers versus companies that are physical products, or is that the same concept applies for all of them?
I think structurally speaking, the same concepts do apply from a structural level perspective. Now, where you're going to get that differential, as you would in just like traditional sourcing and procurement, is really on how do you apply these concepts from a structural conceptual level to actually what are you going to look at? So, for example, your cost drivers or your emissions drivers are going to be very different in a service organization than they are for a goods organization, particularly when you look at production. When you think about materials production, a lot of your drivers and the pieces that you want to focus on is what are the inputs that are going into your materials? How are the inputs getting to your materials? How is those other considerations that might not be there for a services organization. So, as an example, for professional services, one of the largest carbon footprint generators in professional services is actually travel. So we know that for a fact. So when you start to address that, and when you start to look into a lens of opportunity there, do you have the opportunity to actually limit your consultant travel? And then therefore you reduce your emissions. Therefore you also reduce your costs, because travel budgets for consultants is actually quite high. So that's an example of that. In goods and in materials, you might have different costs and, emissions drivers. So where are you getting your goods from? Where are you getting your input goods from to your materials? How are you getting your energy? That's another consideration. When it comes to asset management, how are you getting your replacement? All of those different considerations and pieces. So that's really, but conceptually, from a concept application perspective, everything is the same. The nuances are going to differ from company to company for sure.
Yeah, I understand. It's for sure. It's like the framework is the same. We just need to adjust it
Absolutely.
to particularly what you are doing. So, and I see like it's very similar to the asset integrity and corrosion world, where we already are doing a lot. Like a lot of the times they'll come and say, okay, calculate that because we want to extend the life. Now the
Yes.
mindset is not the same, right? It's not to save the planet, it's to save money. But well, we'll take advantage of that. However, how we are showcasing those efforts is sometimes not the right way. So sometimes we think the companies are doing nothing, but then examples that you have given are we are already doing, and that's my message also. It's like we are already a lot advanced if we think about it, but then I think we are lacking on how we showcase those efforts. So what is a good way of saying, hey, you know what? I'm doing already this, and this is my target. And then I already have halfway discovered magically that we are doing all those efforts and they're paying off. So what is a good way of showcasing what your companies are doing?
I think you hit a very, very important point there, Monica, which is, what is the benefit of a program or an opportunity, right? And calculating that benefit. And that's where I really do encourage a lot of teams to collaborate. And we go back to that keyword of collaboration, of working together with your materials engineers, your procurement people, also your sustainability/reporting people. Those are very important people as well, because when you start to bring these people into a room to having conversations, you can think about, oh, we did this project, materials designed it with this consideration. The design of it is actually going to reduce the cost and reduce, also carbon emissions footprints. And then we brought in some supplier lenses, we did a bid out, we brought in an alternative supplier, and that supplier is going to bring us further reductions, either, in price and cost, whatever that looks like. At the end of all of this, we do this all the time. We report out, here's a picture of the success of the project, right? Hey, the project was done. This is the impact on the organization. I think a lot of the time people go through this process and they forget to report all the other side benefits and record all those side benefits. So they'll say, hey, our project saved the company $1.5 million and over the next 6 years. So here's my cost reporting exercise. And then they put that in there, everyone gets happy and they celebrate it and they move on. Sometimes they might have a bullet point that says, oh, by the way, it also reduces emissions, but they don't take the time to actually calculate out what that means, right? If you're actually seeing less corrosion over the next 5, 10, 20 years because of your material swap, what does that mean? How much does it cost to actually send a maintenance repair person out to maintain and repair an asset versus having an asset be set up from a long-term perspective up front? So all of those considerations, taking the time to really calculate that out and report that back, not just to the business unit, not just to your procurement divisions, but also to your sustainability team to let them know of the great work that's happening. It's, hey, just want to let you know this project was done. We did a transportation mode switch. And when we did the transportation mode switch, we saved the company X million dollars. But by the way, by switching modes, we're actually also moving to a lower emissions level transportation mode. And you might not have all the data that you need to calculate some of that, but they would have it and they can help you do that, certainly. So being able to really focus on reporting and celebrating those wins, because I think we always forget to celebrate whenever we finish a project, because it's always so crazy in the world. It's like, oh, we finished this project, on to the next one, or the next one has already started 3 weeks before the close of this one. So you don't take the time to really kind of say, let's take a step back, reflect on what's happened, what were the impacts of what we did, and let's celebrate that for a moment.
That's important what you're saying. It's we don't take those little victories, mini victories, and then a lot of mini victories will get you to where you want to go. Whether a big victory probably is faster, but then it'll cost a lot of much more resources and trouble and all that. So that's cool. Awesome. It is. I can see a lot of integrations that can happen between, the materials growth and integrity world and what you're describing. And I'm glad that we are trying to change the narrative going on that direction. And then that there is interest out there to move towards that, because ultimately we can't close our eyes. It's happening and we need to be part of the solution. I say always we are privileged because we have the opportunity to be part of this pivotal moment. So it's good to see that there is interest on going that direction.
Absolutely.
So now, let's speak about your expansion and then going from east to west and then conquering French and then now going south to the beautiful beaches and all that. Let me pick your brain a little bit more on the entrepreneurial side. There is not a lot of times that I have the privilege to have a founder, co-founder, CEO, C-level person. And it's so important, as I said before. So what has been going on? Like, how was that started? Maybe perhaps the best question to ask is, now that you see behind, it's 7.5 years of this baby of yours, what would have you done different from the position you are today from 7 years ago?
It's an interesting question to be asked that, because we do get asked that question quite a bit, and I struggle to answer it in a, I guess, well-structured format, because my answer is almost always nothing. Actually, not almost always, it's always nothing, because where we are today, I'm so proud of where we are today. And I feel like we got here because of what we experienced, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, whether we failed or we succeeded. Those little pieces all added up to who we are today. So if I go back and I change anything, I'd be afraid of creating a butterfly effect, and then we're not where we are today. So, that's really, I struggle to answer that question, but I will say what has been really interesting in the journey of 7.5 years that we've been on here is watching how the market has shifted, being in tune with what's happening with our clients, with the market, because we're a managed services organization. So we're in with our clients. We're operating as extensions of their team. So we're very much dialed into what's the latest changes, what's the latest pace that's happening. We saw blockchain rise. Now we're seeing generative AI rise. I think what's really important as an organization for us is being dynamic, being able to pivot, and being able to diversify our offerings. So last year, actually, we actually launched our training offering. And previously, we'd never done this before. We've always offered, managed services in digital transformation, in procurement services, in sustainable procurement. Now, effective last year, we kind of created this training offering out of what our clients kept saying to us. So we would work with clients and they'd say, man, I love how your people approach procurement. I love that mindset that they have. I love their strategic consideration. I love how they're passionate about their work. I wish we had more of that. And this whole concept of training a mindset that really cares, that really links back into, all of these different considerations, that wants to do better, that wants to see clients succeed, that wants to see the world succeed, all those other elements, that kind of drove us to create that offering. Did I think 7.5 years ago we were going to create training offering? Probably not, but it led us to create this. And I think that's really been the biggest and most rewarding part of the entire journey so far, is seeing how fast we're able to adapt to changes and being able to adapt our offerings, adapt our changes, and adapt our corporate identity, actually, to be able to grow and see the organization itself evolve.
That's so interesting, and it's one of the biggest skills, personally or corporately, to have is flexibility and that capability to adapt in a quick manner to changes, because that's what we learned a lot after COVID is we need to be adaptable, we need to be flexible, and we need to be able to, as individuals and as corporations, change the offering and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting to see how, again, we have points in common on this learning, and then how SDG number 4 is there too. So it's one of those things that is amazing to discover with our guests, is how much commonalities, regardless of the area that we're talking about, there are, and that we can interconnect and say, hey, we're doing that too. Like, how can we then connect the dots and make it align?
Absolutely.
We are almost getting to the end here, and it always goes so fast. But
So fast.
yeah, I enjoyed it so much. But let's see, there is a person, I was having this conversation with someone this morning about making, and actually it's happened quite a bit lately. So now that I have you here, how was that decision, the moment that you said, I quit, I leave the corporate, my secure paycheck, my RSPs, or whatever is fund, like pension plan or whatever, and dental, and all those many things that we have, and then I'll go on my own. What was that decision moment like, and what did that push was for you like?
So it's actually a very funny story I can share with you there. We actually probably had very interesting timing. When we left our previous organization from industry, um, folks were like, well, do you have clients? You should have worked part-time until you built up a client base and you have a secure business model that you can immediately move to for revenue. We knew ourselves very well. So I think that's the first thing, is you have to know yourself. You have to know how you work. And the way my co-founder and I are, we're very similar people. We cannot do partial percentage into something when it comes to level of effort. Like, we're always 120% people. And it's to a good thing when you're focused on one thing, but you can't do 120% on two things unless you want to just not sleep ever. So we came to that realization and we said, well, sure, in theory, we could say, we start doing minimal work here on corporate, do the bare minimum, satisfy the requirements, and then start to, invest more time outside of like business hours to try to build our business. And we realized that wouldn't work for us. It's not who we are as people. We are very much that 120% type of personality. So we had to quit cold turkey. So we basically went in, handed in our resignations. It was January that we basically came in and dropped off our resignations and basically started the organization with no clients and no website. I think we were scrambling very madly that same evening trying to put together the website and everything else because we had a couple of industry events to go to. But that came from a place of knowing ourselves as people very well, that we knew we had to be able to make that cut. And that force of not having that safety net of the organization, the safe paycheck, all of those things, that was very motivating. It was very driving. Like, you knew you had to go out there and sell. You had to go out there and connect with people, because what else are you going to do? No one else is going to come in and just hand you business on a platter. That's not how that works, right? And so that was a big component of what made us drive that choice that we'd made. And then it was funny because everyone came back to us about a year after, because our previous organization had done some volunteering departures. So very, very good packages. And they were like, well, look, guys, you should have waited a year and you could have had these great packages. You could have had these paychecks, and then you could have started your business. And then the way we kind of looked at it was, yeah, but then we would have lost a year. And what we built in that year was absolutely incredible. We built incredible networks, incredible, client bases, amazing mandates. And if we had waited a year, we would have lost all of that. So it's not always about like having the best laid plans. I think if you have the intention, you have the passion, and you understand yourself, definitely take the time to know what you want to do, but make that jump, make that leap, because don't look backwards in that sense, because you can't ever change the past. So look forward as to where you're going to go next, how you're going to take advantage of each moment, each day as it comes. So yeah.
And that's amazing what you're saying. We were talking about before I hit the recording button, and it's like, if you wait to be ready, you'll wait forever because there is no
There's
ready
never a
moment.
perfect. Exactly. There's never a
And
perfect moment.
yeah, it's never. So it's, you just have to do it, but knowing yourself pretty well. And then I told you, a lot of people that come, I always give the choice. Do you want me to introduce you, or do you want to introduce yourself? And a lot of people is like, no, introduce me. It's okay. But you said, no, I'll do it. And that comes from exactly what you're saying is, I know exactly who I am, and I know I won't fail. And if I fail, it's just a learning. So I'll just stand up and then continue. It's not that much of a deal. I was reading the book of Ryan Rick, and he is a specialist of failure. He studied failure all his life, and he said, I love failure more than anything because it teaches us so many things. And
100%.
sometimes people are so afraid of failing that they don't take the decision, and then time goes, and then they're like, oh, okay, too late, I'm too old, I'm too fat, or I'm in another moment of my life, I have kids, whatever is the
Mhm.
excuse, and then it never happens. So, and then the second thing that struck my mind, you said, is we would have lost 1 year. And in my perception, time, like money, you can go and make money anytime, but time is not coming back. So that one
Exactly.
year put you ahead of all the game. And sometimes it's difficult to grasp the how we are using our time, but definitely I see that you're putting that in there, and that was part of who you are, plus knowing yourself pretty well and saying, like, this is gonna work. I don't know how, but it
But
will.
it's going to work. We're going to make it work. That's the thing. And
Exactly.
I love what you say there about failure there, Monica, because I think when people think about failure, they actually don't take the time to quantify the impact of failure, right? So when we did this, everyone was like, oh, well, what if you fail? What if you fail spectacularly? I'm like, then I have gained a lot of experience from a year of developing my own organization, and that's going to make me twice as employable when I go back into industry. Like, there is no risk impact there. Like, what if you fail? Yes, what if I fail? That means I take everything that I learned and it makes me a better person, and I can go back into industry. I can go back into whatever other role that I could decide to take on. And I think the fear of failure without quantifying it is something that people get caught up in so much. So I love that you brought that up.
Well, thank you. And that's, is the very vibe, or the very concept of our companies. Is not for nothing that is called infinity growth, because it's like we grow all the time. This is not fail or pass. It's not a check, and no, it's not. It's just learnings. And then cumulative experience comes from good and bad moments. But the bad moments teach you in a hard way how not to do it. So you're more cautious on taking that step in the next time. So that's definitely something. Any last, words for the audience? If there are, we are in a STEM, only like 20% of girls out there are in STEM, and then out of those, only like 2% get to senior level of management. So there's still a lot of stigma, which is sad because we can do things amazingly, and then you're showing that. So I don't know, maybe any last something for the audience, and also for maybe someone that is in that edge of should I don't, and then for girls, what can you tell them now that you are in that position?
Uh, I think it's always going to be about what matters to you. And I would say, the most important thing is finding what you're passionate about, building out of that passion. Because when you work from a place of passion, your work doesn't feel like work. And I know it sounds corny. I know there's a lot of like motivational speaking out there that says, find something that you love and work doesn't feel like work. I mean, it still feels hard. When you're working at like, 1 a.m., it's still going to feel like you're working at 1 a.m. But I think what is beautiful about it when you come from a place of passion is you're feeding that fire in your soul versus you're selling time. And that's another thing that you emphasize. And I think that is so, so important for people to recognize. It's time is the most finite thing you have in your life. And, you know, if what is the price tag you're going to put on how you spend your time? Because if you're not spending time the way that you want to spend your time, then you are selling your time to somebody else for a price tag. And when you look at it from that perspective, I think most people will find that their cushy corporate jobs or their cushy corporate structure is not necessarily as profitable as they think that they would, because I personally would not sell a year of my time for any price tag because I value my time. I value my freedom. I value what that control that I have over how I spend that time. But I think what's really, again, for people to recognize is find something that you love and then pursue things out of that love and that passion side of things. And if that's within corporate, all the power to you, but make sure that that is something that you love and you are passionate about and you want to pursue that and that you're in that position of pursuing that.
So important to say that. It's when I work with the Immigration Society, helping people get settled down in their Canadian workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And then that theme comes all the time. Is like, I need a job desperately, so I'm gonna take anything. But then they will be miserable in some time. So breaking that barrier, it's mental. It's so hard. And then one of the panelists that came, she's in Mexico. They won the UNESCO award for training. So what they do is they bring training to the field. So they help people get better at their skills and take educational improvements. And she said to us something like, those people have always been told you can't. So when you tell them you can, they are like, what, like, where is the hook? Like,
What's the
this is
catch?
weird. This is weird. It feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that, finding that passion, whatever it is, makes people just thrive better. And if they are enjoying what they're doing, they're passionate, they're fueled, it vibrates not only with them, but with their circle. And then it's a ripple effect.
Absolutely. And we're never saying like don't work a job because people need to eat, but always be in pursuit of that passion. Once you recognize what that is that fuels you, always be in pursuit of that and look to extending outside of that. So yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Jane, it's been amazing talking to you, finding out, like, we have been knowing each other for so long, but now we are kind of understanding how much similarities are there. And then thanks for bringing that perspective for the audience. That is going to definitely be something that everyone in the materials, corrosion, and integrity world can use in the different ways they are acting. So, and then this is a big piece where we can have another check mark and, going towards that direction that we want to go.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this subject and I love seeing the collaboration approach towards all of this target because this is a very, very complex and important problem that we're trying to solve. And we're only going to be able to get there by making baby steps together. So this
There you
has
go.
been an awesome conversation. Thank you, Monica.
SDG number 17.
Collaboration.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much. Say hi to all the team, and then we'll see the audience in the next episode of Material Business.
Thank you.
All right.